John Petrucci, the musical architect of Dream Theater, the man who made the world see progressive metal in a completely different light. Never loud, never flaunting the chaos of a stereotypical rock star, Petrucci chose silence and let his technique speak for him. Yet it is precisely that silence that turns him into a mystery. What transformed this calm, reserved man into a guitarist capable of steering the listener's emotions through sound structures as complex as a labyrinth? Behind the glory lies a price few ever saw. The youthful years spent racing against the fear of inadequacy, the dread that Dream Theater might collapse after co-founder Mike Portnoy's departure, and the crushing pressure to maintain perfection in every single note. Petrucci's blazing music was born not from joy, but from solitude, from unspoken wounds and a relentless, almost ruthless discipline toward himself. What made a man who shunned the spotlight become a legend in it? And what was the cost of staying at that peak? This is the story of John Petrucci, the man who chose to live in complexity, to compose melodies that could silence the world. John Petrucci was born on July 12, 1967, in Kings Park, Long Island, into an Italian-American family where music pulsed through the walls like the heartbeat of the home. His sister's piano echoed from the living room. His younger sister's clarinet drifted through the halls, and his older brother laid down warm bass lines in the basement. Those sounds weren't just hobbies. They were the first language through which John learned that art could sustain a soul. At 8, he picked up the guitar for the first time, not out of passion, but jealousy that his sister got to stay up late practicing. Yet the childish excitement faded quickly. Early mornings for school turned practice into punishment. The guitar was tucked away in a corner, seemingly forgotten forever. Fate returned when John was 12, and this time, he was no longer the same boy. Kevin Moore, his childhood friend who would one day share the world's biggest stages with him, invited John to join a school band. For the first time, he felt part of something greater than himself. From that night on, the guitar stopped being an excuse to stay up late. It became the only place he truly felt he belonged. In his small bedroom, the dim yellow lamp cast light on a boy running his fingers tirelessly over the fretboard, mimicking Malmsteen, Steve Morse, Randy Rhoads. While other kids played outside, John chose solitude. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to be better. It was a choice no one saw, but one that would define his future legend. Petrucci's childhood held no tragedy, no broken home, no devastating loss, no cinematic pain. But peace has its own kind of curse, the fear of mediocrity, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of staying forever just the kid who could play guitar in a small house. That quiet insecurity turned him into a perfectionist early on. Every time he looked at the masters on cassette covers, he would ask himself, "Why not me?" That question became his lifelong engine, pushing him to practice obsessively, not to beat others, but to conquer the version of himself from yesterday. When the gates of Berklee College of Music, the promised land for young talents dreaming beyond their hometowns, finally opened before him, John knew this was no longer a game. There, he would meet people whose names he didn't yet know, but who would soon become his musical family, comrades in every creative battle to come. More importantly, Berklee gave him the chance to turn fear into power, perfectionism into a weapon, and dreams into a declaration. He would face the world through his guitar. And that was the moment the real journey began, the one that would lead John Petrucci to cross paths with Myung, Portnoy, and a dream waiting to take form. At Berklee, John Petrucci realized he was no longer the kid who played the best guitar in the neighborhood. Here, every student was a hidden genius, and that very fact awakened in him a fierce sense of competition. In a music theory class, Petrucci met John Mayung, a bassist so quiet he seemed to vanish into the crowd. Yet one pluck of his strings could make everyone turn their heads. And then came Mike Portnoy, a drumming powerhouse, fiery and larger than life, completing what would become a fateful trio. 3 young men, 3 contrasting personalities. Yet when they played together, the music fused into one living organism. Petrucci, Myung, and Portnoy formed a band called Majesty, a name grander than their means, with a budget barely enough to rent a cramped practice room in a packed dorm. They spent nights writing, playing, experimenting, while their classmates slept. Gradually, Berkeley began to feel too small for their ambition. The 3 made a daring, some said reckless, decision to drop out and pursue music full-time. It was a leap without a safety net, but they knew if they hesitated, they'd remain dreamers forever. Majesty later became Dream Theater, a declaration that their music wasn't meant just to be heard, but to be entered, to be lived in. In the early years, Dream Theater was an unknown name, ignored by record labels, rejected by studios, and misunderstood by audiences who didn't know what they were trying to do. Their debut album, When Dream and Day Unite, 1989, was released into skepticism. Odd time signatures, long structures, interwoven narratives, completely out of sync with the glam metal craze ruling the charts. Tracks like A Fortune in Lies and The Killing Hand revealed Petrucci's musical mind, sharp as a blade, yet drenched in melancholy. But the press barely took notice. Even small venues hesitated to book a band that sounded too complicated. There was disappointment, hurt, and nights when the 3 asked themselves, did we make a mistake turning down the easy road? Yet in that darkness, Petrucci grew harder, more defiant. He refused to dilute their sound for market approval or chase cheap applause. If the world wasn't ready, they'd be the ones to change it. And that's when a new voice entered, James LaBrie, setting the stage for a chapter no one saw coming. The rise of Dream Theater from obscurity to the face of an entire genre. Dream Theater refused to bow after their debut's failure. They returned to the studio with the fury of men who'd been underestimated. The result was Images and Words, 1992, a perfect strike. Pull Me Under, nearly 9 minutes long and ending abruptly like a door slammed shut, somehow became an MTV hit, a miracle for a prog metal band. For the first time, complex chord changes, unpredictable time signatures, and dramatic vocals cut through an era of disposable pop metal. Petrucci understood. They had forced the world to listen to what was once dismissed as too much. But success was never a finish line, only a threshold to greater trials. In 1993, Dream Theater embarked on an exhausting world tour. Endless flights, late-night meals backstage, and restless sleep on the tour bus became routine. On stage, they were warriors engulfed in cheers. Off stage, a quiet fear lingered. What if this one hit was all we had? Their live album, Live at the Marquee, was released as proof that Dream Theater weren't just studio perfectionists. They were alive on stage. Yet the higher they climbed, the heavier the pressure became. Then came Awake, 1994, the journal of a band beginning to fracture from within. The sound turned darker, denser, echoing like footsteps in a hallway with no exit, the reflection of tension, exhaustion, and diverging creative visions. Just when they seemed to need each other the most, Kevin Moore, the childhood friend who started it all with Petrucci, left without a word of anger. His silence weighed heavier than any fight, leaving a void no technique could fill. Dream Theater had lost its first soul. They had tasted success and learned that the same light that illuminates the stage can burn through anything not strong enough to endure it. Yet out of that pain, something extraordinary began to take shape, a work destined to shake the foundations of progressive metal. The loss and confusion that followed Awake didn't break Dream Theater. They quietly turned pain into power and began a bold new journey. In 1999, they released Metropolis Pant 2, Scenes from a Memory, an album that made the entire prog metal world bow in awe. It wasn't just a collection of songs. It was a story told through music of dreams, death, reincarnation, guilt, and awakening. From the whispered opening to the explosive finale, every detail was crafted like a film. This monumental success confirmed what many had begun to suspect. John Petrucci was the structural brain of Dream Theater. He didn't just write riffs or solos, he designed the listener's emotional architecture. But Scenes from a Memory wasn't an ending. It was the start of something even more demanding. In 2000, Dream Theater launched a massive world tour, bringing the album's reincarnation narrative to life on stage. Every night, they reenacted the entire story. The hypnotic opening, the gunshot, the tragic death. Tens of thousands of fans stood frozen, not out of confusion, but because they were utterly absorbed in the world Dream Theater created. Backstage, Mike Portnoy once collapsed from exhaustion after their New York show. But when the music began, they all rose again. That was the year Dream Theater proved they didn't just create music, they inhabited it. By 2001, the band still hadn't allowed themselves a single true break. They released Metropolis 2000, Scenes from New York, capturing that historic performance, then went straight back into the studio. The pressure now came not from labels or critics, but from within. How do you surpass a masterpiece? Petrucci and Portnoy began diving into darker corners of the human psyche, trying to translate fear, loneliness, and madness into sound. Each recording session felt like a mental surgery, peeling back layers of emotion to find what truly drives human despair. Out of that process came 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, 2002, their most ambitious double album yet. Gone was the linear narrative. In its place came explorations of inner wars, bipolar disorder, PTSD, depression, autism. The 40-minute finale was split into 8 movements, each representing a soul trapped within its own turbulence. Petrucci no longer wrote music merely as a guitarist. He wrote as a human being wrestling with unease, empathy, and the mysteries of fragile minds. Dream Theater were no longer running from difficulty. They were facing it head-on. But as they ventured deeper into the darkness, one haunting question loomed. Would they have the strength to rise from it? Or would their own ambition consume them? Right after 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, Dream Theater stepped into an even darker, deeper journey. In 2003, they released Train of Thought, the heaviest, bleakest album of their career. It was the sound of minds straining under the pressure to constantly outdo themselves. Petrucci and Portnoy made a pact. Strip away the polish, leave only the pain and anger. When As I Am roared to life, the guitar hit like a fist straight to the face of the mainstream. The keyboards receded, giving way to razor-edged riffs and suffocating melodies. But beneath that hardened exterior lay a silent fear. If they changed too much, would they lose the fans who had believed in Dream Theater from the start? 2 years later, in 2005, Octavarium marked a contemplative turning point. If Train of Thought was a storm of fury, Octavarium was the still moment after it. the band gazing inward. Petrucci and his bandmates explored the philosophy of the creative cycle. An artist rises from zero to greatness, only to return to the beginning again. The 24-minute title track formed a sonic circle, beginning with a single sustained note like a first breath, and ending on that same note, as if to say, every ending is just another start. This was no longer about virtuosity. It was a meditation on existence itself. Yet behind that artistic ambition, internal cracks were forming. Mike Portnoy, founder, brother-in-arms, and creative fire of the group, began to feel exhausted by the weight of his own responsibilities, writing, managing, keeping the creative spark alive. When he suggested the band take a long hiatus to rest and rediscover inspiration, the others refused. They were too afraid that even one pause could make their dream slip away. And so Portnoy left, without drama, without blame, leaving behind a silence heavier than any fight. Many thought it was the end of Dream Theater, but for John Petrucci, losing a friend didn't mean losing purpose. Quietly, he took on the artistic and production leadership, determined to keep the ship afloat. The result was a dramatic turn of events, 2011, the first album without Portnoy, proving every doubt wrong. Sweeping melodies, intricate structures, and guitar lines that told the story of a wounded yet unbroken heart. Dream Theater didn't just survive. They stood tall on the very music that had sustained them. Having proven they were still alive and strong, Dream Theater refused to rest on their legacy. Instead, they opened a new chapter with the astonishing 2016, a 2-hour rock opera telling a dystopian tale of empire, loss, and the rebirth of music. Petrucci wrote his guitar parts like a storyteller, alternate picking passages echoing footsteps through palace halls, while the keyboards and orchestra formed a chorus of determination. The live shows became full theatrical productions, complete with massive visuals and synchronized lighting. But behind the scenes came tension, massive budgets, endless studio hours, and pressure from the label to deliver a hit. Dream Theater embraced the challenge, and though the astonishing divided critics, it was a bold leap forward, proof of their refusal to stagnate. 3 years later, steadier in spirit and lineup, the band returned with Distance Over Time, 2019, a leaner, tighter record still brimming with intelligence and energy. Petrucci called it a quick but precise punch. The riffs were still intricate, but emotion took the front seat. Loss, yearning, and hope intertwined. Longtime fans could feel both the sound and the breath of a band that had carried nearly 35 years of history. Then, in 2021, came one of their crowning moments, A View from the Top of the World, the album that earned Dream Theater their first Grammy for The Alien. It wasn't just an award, it was the world's acknowledgement that Dream Theater hadn't merely endured, they had evolved. Petrucci, now more than a guitarist or composer, had become the bridge between intellect, precision, and pure emotion. And though the road ahead remains long, that Grammy moment stood as proof. A band, once mocked for being too complex, was now celebrated for its exactness and depth. This ongoing journey shows that Dream Theater never stopped listening to themselves, and that serious, thoughtful music still has a place in a restless age. And Petrucci, the man who always let his guitar speak louder than words, now poses the next great question. After reaching the summit, what story will they write next? Outside of Dream Theater, John Petrucci always needed a place where ideas beyond all rules could take flight. In 1997, he teamed up with Mike Portnoy, Jordan Rudess, and Tony Levin to create Liquid Tension Experiment, a true musical laboratory. The two albums released in 1998 and 1999 exploded like an atomic blast within the prog metal community. No vocals, no boundaries, just four brilliant minds chasing each other through a maze of rhythm and tempo. Tracks like Acid Rain and Universal Mind became essential classics that every technical guitarist has listened to at least once. And when LTE reunited in 2021, the moment Portnoy's first drum beat hit, fans everywhere knew the old magic had never faded. Yet there were emotions only Petrucci himself could express. In 2005, he released his debut solo album, Suspended Animation, still razor-sharp in technique, but underneath it lay a personal story Dream Theater had never touched. Then, in 2020, amid the global COVID-19 pandemic, Terminal Velocity arrived like a message of rebirth, and astonishingly, the drummer was none other than Portnoy after 10 years apart. No press conference, no statement of reconciliation, just two old friends in a studio, letting the music heal the cracks time had left behind. At the same time, Petrucci built an entire creative ecosystem around his name. From the Music Man Majesty, a guitar designed to fly as fast as humanly possible, to the Mesa Boogie JP2C, known for its thunderous metal tone. Then came the Archetype, Petrucci plugin, allowing millions of guitarists around the world to capture his iconic sound with a single click. Through his instructional course Rock Discipline, he passed on his greatest life lesson. Talent only blossoms when it's cultivated with iron discipline. Of course, even geniuses have their clumsy moments. In one interview, Petrucci confessed he once heard Voodoo Child and thought it was by Stevie Ray Vaughan, only to be shocked when he learned it was Jimi Hendrix. A small anecdote, but one that makes people smile. Behind the stoic face of a technical master is a very human, endearing man. Still, his silence has sometimes sparked storms. On one rare occasion when Petrucci voiced a political opinion, backlash followed. The prog community is notoriously sensitive about such topics. He responded in his usual way, no arguments, no explanations, simply returning to his guitar, as if to say, "Music is the only thing I want to speak through." The greatest pressure he's ever faced hasn't come from the public, but from within himself. At times, he's admitted his biggest fear is becoming predictable. Whenever a riff or song structure felt too familiar, that was his cue to tear it apart and start over. That relentless self-challenge is what keeps him moving forward after more than 30 years, never once stopping to rest on victory. Looking back on his journey beyond Dream Theater, one thing becomes clear. It was never about escape, nor about showing off. It was fuel. The energy that makes Petrucci walk on stage each time more alive, more intense, more inspired than before. And because of that, the guitar in his hands has never grown old, and the dream he began at 18 continues to grow, note by note, day by day. Beyond Dream Theater, Petrucci's side journeys kept his music alive and ever-evolving. But when the stage lights faded and the cheers dissolved behind the curtain, he was left to face the question every artist dreads. After all this, who will still be there? At the boundary between glory and real life, one woman always waited for him, Raina Sands. John Petrucci met Raina when they were both young, at a time when music was everything. Raina, the fiery guitarist of the all-female thrash metal band, Mean Streak. And John, a driven young musician desperate to prove himself, found each other through sound and shared ambition. Their love was simple, but deep. After every show, instead of partying, they'd bring their guitars home, testing riffs, laughing over missed notes, and debating tones. In 1993, as John stood at the height of Dream Theater's rise, they married, sealing a promise that no matter how bright the spotlight, home would always be built on music and love. Their marriage was more than affection. It was a shared vocation. Rena understood the weight John carried, the tours, the studio, the fans, the discipline. All of it consumed time and energy. She was the quiet shelter when he returned home, raising their 3 children, Samantha and Rennie, twins, and Kiara, while he was away for shows or recordings. Yet that absence cut deep. John often brought work into their bedroom, the amp still humming, tone knobs turning, fingers practicing scales while Rena and the kids slept. Sometimes she'd ask, "Are you still here with us? Or only through a tour screen?" She would watch him staring at his guitar like it was a stranger who had taken her place, and her heart would sink. Years passed, and both learned that keeping a dream alive is one thing, keeping a person beside you is another. John once admitted he felt guilty for missing life's smallest moments, reading to his kids at night, walking them to school, having an uninterrupted dinner. Rena never shouted, "You love your guitar more than me," but her eyes once waited for him to finish a 90-minute demo before she could talk. He saw that in her face, and it hurt. But he didn't give up. He vowed to be both a world-class artist and a present husband and father, not letting family become the price of success. In the years that followed, John applied the same body-mind discipline routine to home life that he'd used for his music. Morning gym to stay strong, evenings fully with his family, lights out by 11. Rena became his silent partner in rock discipline, not through his guitar tone, but through the rhythm of daily life. Together they built a home filled with music, piano, small organ, the gentle picking of guitar, but grounded in a rule. No showbiz posturing, only passion nurtured with patience. Of course, no marriage comes without scars. During Dream Theater's toughest stretches, production chaos, solo projects, endless tours, tension resurfaced. Rena felt she was not only a mother, but also a manager and emotional anchor. And John, lost in creation, sometimes forgot that the woman beside him was not John Petrucci's wife, but Rena, an artist in her own right. One night after a show, John came home, plugged in his headphones, and started reviewing a mix instead of asking, "How was your day?" Rena watched him for a moment, then went to bed alone. It was the quietest, sharpest blow he ever received. Yet they endured, not through grand gestures, but small ones. "I'm sorry. I understand. Take your time. I'm here." They still share the same ritual. John sitting on a stool, Rena with her guitar, the two playing softly once the kids are asleep. They remain two musicians, two lovers, two souls bound by patience, not perfection. When John walks on stage with his signature Majesty guitar and the lights blaze down, he always glances toward the front row, where Rena sits, clapping softly. Not because she's there, but because he knows. He's not playing for the crowd, but for the home he returns to each night. After decades living by the rhythm and wattage of sound, John Petrucci steps into 2025 with a spirit untouched by time. To him, this year isn't a milestone of age. It's a reaffirmation of identity. With the guitar still in hand and the light still burning, he walks on stage to declare, the dream has never retreated. This year, Dream Theater released Parasomnia, not just an album, but a statement that they're still evolving, still fearless. Petrucci, as both lead guitarist and chief architect, stood between two extremes, preserving their iconic sound and reinventing it so that not one note echoed the past. The record brims with thunderous riffs, soaring leads like alarms in the mind, and quiet, reflective passages that remind listeners. This journey isn't for the casual ear. Petrucci isn't just playing, he's reshaping the material itself. Beyond the studio, 2025 also marks his investment in community and the next generation. He hosted Guitar Universe 5.0 in Lake Las Vegas, gathering top artists and hundreds of young guitarists to explore his architectural approach to music. Standing at the mic, he didn't flaunt technique. He simply said, "Your music must become the voice you're afraid to speak." And once again, when the spotlight hits, John glances toward that same front row, where Rena sits, softly clapping. Not because she's famous, but because he knows every success needs an anchor. He plays not just for the audience, but for the home and the woman who believed in him all along. John Petrucci never calls himself a legend. In fact, he avoids the term, as if it belongs to those who talk more than they create. Yet his humility is exactly what etches his name deeper into memory. What he leaves behind isn't just albums, awards, or breathtaking solos. It's a standard for how to live. In a world where countless guitarists rise and fade like summer hits, Petrucci chose the hardest path, surpassing himself year after year. His students keep growing in number, not because they want to match his speed, but because they want to match his patience. In bedrooms around the world, his posters don't just symbolize technique, they whisper a message. If you want to reach your dream, start practicing. One day, when the stage goes dark and the applause fades, what will remain in listeners' hearts won't be the 200 BPM picking, but the feeling of being guided through music that was fierce, yet profoundly human. Petrucci turned the guitar into a diary, filled with anger, confusion, mourning for lost friends, and a fragile hope that glows in every closing note. His music will live on, not because it's flawless, but because it's honest about the fears we all carry. Petrucci makes the world fall silent, not through fame, but through devotion that asks for nothing in return. And when we're lucky enough to encounter an artist like him, we can't help but ask, what is it in that sound that grips the soul? A solo? A live moment? Or simply the feeling of being understood, without a single word spoken? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to join us in honoring the lives of artists who turned music into something sacred. Because while many chase the light to be seen, John Petrucci chose the darkness to create it.